Every time a message crosses the world in seconds, or a high-definition video plays on another continent without a moment's hesitation, it is easy to assume the information is bouncing through the sky. We picture billions of dollars and vast amounts of data moving between countries through satellites orbiting high above us. But that image is an illusion. The true physical reality is found thousands of meters below the waves. Resting in the dark across the seabed is a massive network of glass fibers. These cables carry more than 99% of all international data traffic. When you open a website hosted overseas, the request leaves your device as an electrical signal. It travels through local routers and land-based networks until it reaches a coastal landing station, where the information is fed directly into a cable stretching into the sea. The modern digital economy does not float in a cloud. It relies entirely on a 1.7 million kilometer physical infrastructure hidden at the bottom of the ocean. The desire to cross oceans with physical wires began long before cloud computing. During the 19th century, sending a message across the Atlantic meant putting a letter on a ship, limiting the speed of communication to the speed of the vessel and the mercy of the weather. Inventors attempted to bypass this delay by laying insulated telegraph wires across the ocean floor. The earliest efforts repeatedly snapped during installation or stopped working after only a few weeks as the insulation failed and signals decayed over the vast distance. In 1858, a transatlantic telegraph cable briefly succeeded. Queen Victoria and United States President James Buchanan exchanged a message electrically, crossing the ocean in hours rather than weeks. The connection lasted only a few weeks. Operators trying to strengthen a fading signal applied excessive voltage to the line, ultimately destroying the fragile cable. Engineers adapted their methods, and by 1866, a reliable transatlantic cable entered permanent service. The speed of global communication was permanently separated from the speed of human travel. Those early historical cables carried electrical telegraph pulses. At the center of a modern submarine cable are extremely thin strands of glass. The digital data that computers rely on, the ones and zeros, is converted into rapid pulses of light and fired directly into these optical fibers. This diagram shows the principle of total internal reflection. When light enters the inner core of the fiber at the correct angle, it repeatedly reflects inward against the boundary layer instead of escaping into the surrounding material. That single signal can then be divided into multiple different wavelengths, or different colors of light. Each color carries its own stream of information, allowing a tiny number of glass fibers to carry immense quantities of data at the same time. Even light weakens over a distance of thousands of kilometers. To prevent the signal from fading entirely, these cables contain electrically powered repeaters spaced along the seabed to capture, amplify, and send the light onward. In the deepest parts of the ocean, the environment is freezing and remarkably calm, allowing the cables to be surprisingly thin. But as the line approaches shore, the hazards multiply. Near the coast, ship anchors, commercial fishing equipment, and shifting tides pose constant threats. To survive, the shore-bound cables are wrapped in thick protective layers of steel armor wire and copper conductors, and are often buried in trenches cut directly into the seabed. Every millimeter of this armor exists for a single purpose: to keep the hair-thin glass strands at the center dry and shielded from the physical pressure of the ocean. Even with heavy armor, that shielding routinely fails. The most common causes are entirely ordinary: a commercial vessel dropping an anchor in a restricted zone, or a fishing trawler dragging heavy equipment across the seabed, snagging and crushing the line. Severe natural forces play a role as well. Underwater earthquakes, landslides, and volcanic activity can trigger massive physical shifts, sometimes severing multiple cables in a single region simultaneously. These disruptions happen constantly. Globally, between 150 to 200 submarine cable faults are reported every single year. Finding the break requires precise measurement. Engineers at coastal landing stations send electrical and optical tests down the remaining intact wire to estimate the exact distance to the fault. A highly specialized repair ship is dispatched to those coordinates. The crew lowers grappling hooks to the seafloor, drags them until they catch the line, and hauls the damaged section up to the deck where technicians manually splice the glass back together. A digital outage that takes a fraction of a second to occur demands an immense, expensive, and often days-long physical maritime operation to repair. Given the vulnerability of the ocean floor, it is natural to ask why the world doesn't simply transmit this information through space. While satellite constellations are highly effective for connecting remote communities and providing emergency communication, they cannot fully replace the underwater network. This diagram highlights the constraint of distance. Fiber optic cables provide unmatched data capacity and lower latency because the physical route across a relatively flat ocean floor is significantly shorter than traveling thousands of kilometers up into orbit and back down to Earth. To meet the immense data demands of cloud computing and artificial intelligence, major technology companies now build and own their own submarine cables, moving away from renting capacity on traditional telecommunications networks. This physical reliance creates acute strategic vulnerabilities. Entire national economies, military communications, and government databases often depend on a few narrow geographic corridors and clustered coastal landing stations. Protecting a 1.7 million kilometer network against every mislaid anchor, fishing net, and underwater landslide is an impossible task. The internet survives not because its physical infrastructure is invulnerable. It survives through a meticulously planned architecture of redundancy, ensuring that when one cable snaps in the dark, the hidden system simply reroutes the light.